Hello. We'll start with our reading this morning, but first I must apologise to John and Helen for posting the wrong version of their broadcast yesterday. Goodness knows how that happened, but I trust that you will have been impressed by the lithe way in which they slipped in and out of their seat. I normally doctor that, but somehow you got the undoctored version yesterday. Well, here today, very smoothly, is Deirdre reading Luke chapter 10 verses 38 to the end, the story of Martha and Mary.
Now as they went on their way, Jesus entered a certain village, where a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. She had a sister named Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to what he was saying. But Martha was distracted by her many tasks. So she came to him and asked, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her then to help me." But the Lord answered her, "Martha, Martha, you are worried and distracted by many things. There is need of only one thing. Mary has chosen the better part, which will not be taken away from her."
Well, we all know this one. We often use the Martha and Mary comparison in our everyday lives. I often feel sorry for Martha. Do you? We can imagine these two sisters, chalk and cheese, with the traditional female responsibilities for looking after the home and their brother Lazarus. We don't really know that much about them. They live in Bethany, a village a couple of hours' walk from Jerusalem. Is Lazarus a farmer or in some sort of trade? No idea. He must be the breadwinner, though, because that is his traditional role. But today we focus on the two sisters. I imagine Martha to be the elder one. Their parents must be dead. Martha has taken over her mother's place, cooking and cleaning. She's practical and dutiful, qualities which we tend to admire. The threesome seemed to be a generally happy family, and I assume that because Jesus was very close to them. He's a northerner, and they are southerners. Deirdre and I have our own northern family, to whom we're not related, the Barnards. Some of you know them. Jonty was our vicar here in the 80s before taking on a parish in Penrith in Cumbria. And his wife, a core person in St Mark's, and their children Ben, Sarah and Hannah were great friends when they lived here, and our friendship has never waned, despite the hundreds of miles which have separated us for the last 30 years and more. We call their house our home in the north, and our house their home in the south, and it was like that for Jesus, Martha, Mary and Lazarus. Their closeness drove Jesus to tears when Lazarus died. Well, my imagination goes on filling in the gaps. Most of the time, this was a family knitted together by mutual love. But, as with any family, just occasionally, irritations rise to the surface. Jesus, their beloved friend and teacher from Galilee, has arrived to stay. Such excitement and joy. He is, rightly, their all-time favourite person. His very presence enriches them, as it does to all who come to hear and see him. Jesus does what he always does. He sits everybody down and he starts to talk about the kingdom of heaven and how to bring it about here on earth. The disciples love this, and so does Mary. She does not share her sister's commitment to domestic chores. Perhaps Martha has tended to indulge her sister's tendency to delight more in things of the mind. Now, it's fine when it's just the three of them, but here are 13 guests, and Mary just sits down with the men, not what a good Jewish girl should do anyway, and listens to the master speak. But who wouldn't? It's riveting stuff. And Martha snaps. It just isn't fair. Surely Jesus can see that. You couldn't expect Lazarus to start chopping vegetables. Men just didn't do that sort of thing. So Martha appeals to Jesus, fully expecting him to mete out justice along society's lines. But he doesn't. He supports Mary, praises her choice. If Martha had appealed to us, what would our decision have been? Of quite possibly the opposite of Jesus's. But as Christians, we would never argue that we were right and Jesus was wrong, would we? If we start doing that, we're lost. Jesus' tone to Martha is, I think, loving. Just the uttering of her name twice, Martha, Martha, unusual in the Bible, suggests affection to me, suggests that he wants her to listen and understand. I'm sure he values Martha. And perhaps if he and the disciples had just gone for a stroll with Mary tagging along, rather than his giving them a lesson, he would have been more sympathetic to Martha. But his teaching is for all to hear, and to opt to do other things when such a unique opportunity presents itself has to be the wrong choice. He won't be in Bethany very often. He and we know what lies ahead. For all her good intentions, Martha has told herself that hospitality is as important, if not more important, than listening to Jesus. How can she have failed to realize that he wasn't just any rabbi? He doesn't say the well-worn things they say. He speaks with divine authority, inspired as no one else is inspired. No, Martha has got it wrong, for understandable reasons, but she needs to know she's wrong, and Jesus tells her so kindly. It will take her a little while to accept that, and we never hear whether she comes and joins the group at Jesus' feet. I rather think she does, because in John 11 we find Martha saying to him, "Lord, I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, the one coming into the world." It's easy to find excuses for not making time for God. I'm so attracted by practical, sometimes mindless tasks which demand little of me when I should be praying or reading. The gospel isn't easy. There are lovely stories, but there are hard lessons. The story of Martha and Mary is one of them. Not the hardest, I admit, but hard nonetheless. As God says in Isaiah 55, verse 8, "My thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways." We think we know what is fair and what is not. But Jesus shows us that his judgment of fairness is not what we might have expected, and we have to adjust our ideas to conform to his. It's often counterintuitive. To be faithful Christians, we need to subject ourselves to the rule of Christ, to put on Christ, as Paul puts it, to accept Jesus' priorities over ours. It takes a constant effort of will, but we know how good it feels whenever we manage it. May God help us in our desire and determination to follow in the footsteps of Jesus. Amen. Thank you for being with me this morning. Tomorrow, Wednesday, 9:15, it's Zoom again with Trish and live morning prayer. And then on Thursday, John, and Friday, me. So I do wish you a good week. May God bless you throughout it. And we'll see each other perhaps at morning prayer tomorrow. Goodbye.